Hello, my name is Bob, and today I'm going to show you how my friend Christine gave me these beautiful eyes. I'm starting with some 20mm glass cabochons I got a while back. I've flipped them over here so I'm working on the flat side, and I've stuck the rounded side into some blue sticky tack on the lid of an old prescription bottle to make it easier to hold everything. Normally, I'd start by painting the pupils black because that's the way real eyes work. But in this case, I wanted Bob's eyes to look like they were glowing with some sort of magical force, so I started with white. It's important to remember that you're painting on the backside of what you'll see, so once this white is down in the center of the pupil, I can lay down whatever I want on top of it, and the white will still be what shows up when we flip this thing over. Once I've got the bright dot in the middle, I'll be working my way gradually outward, using darker and darker mixtures of green paint and finishing with black around the edges to make the eyeball fade into the socket. If you look at your eye carefully in the mirror, you'll see that your iris isn't made up of solid colors. It's got strands of tissue radiating out from the center, making subtle lines in your iris. It would take forever to paint the eyes like that, and it wouldn't be any fun. But luckily, we can cheat. That's what I'm doing with the pen. I'm scratching thin lines radiating outward from the center. That exposes the glass again, so whatever I paint in those lines I've scratched off will actually show up when we flip the eyes over. If I just went back and painted the same color, you'd never notice that I'd done this work. But what I actually do is come back with the next darker color to fill in some of those scratched out lines. When you look at the finished eye, you end up seeing those darker streaks radiating out from the center of the eye. You can use the same idea in other ways too. For example, if you wanted to do a fiery dragon's eye, you could start with a red paint, then scratch in the lines and paint with orange, then scratch in more lines and paint with yellow. This works extra well if you've got some paint with some glitter to it, or if you've got color shifting paints. But with Bob's eyes, we're sticking with what I have already on hand, which is a fairly simple green. Sorry, Bob. But it's okay. Your eyes are going to come out gorgeous anyway. As I'm going, I'm painting farther and farther out with the darker colors. I try to make sure that when I'm scratching in the lines, I'm getting just a little overlap with the last round, and I also try to make sure that I've got some of the new scratches going farther in than others. This gives the eyes a little more variety and irregularity, helping to sell the illusion that it's an organic sort of thing. Well, maybe not so organic in Bob's case, what with the glowing magic eyes in a skull and all, but it still makes it look more interesting and more realistic. This has been a lot of talking about what I'm doing, but let's talk about why. I painted the eyes on October 30th and put them in place in Bob's eye sockets on Halloween. So yes, he's obviously going to serve as a Halloween decoration. Once his eyes are in place, he's going to look way better than a cheap dollar store plastic skull has any right to look. But on top of that, Bob is actually going to play a role in a new project I have in mind. My goal is to turn some part of my house, I haven't decided what yet, into something that looks like a mad scientist's lair. And what mad scientist lair would be complete without an unnecessarily prominent skull with glowing eyeballs. I'm pretty happy with how Bob turns out at the end of this project, but I have some tentative ideas for how I can make him even cooler. So don't be surprised if you see him come back again for some more work in the future. If you have any ideas on what else I can do with Bob, I'd love to hear it. Drop me a line in the comments telling me what you think I should do with him next. For now, let's just focus on finishing Bob's eyes. The eyeballs are finished, but they don't fit well into the eye sockets. There are any number of ways to fill these in. I happen to have a really old batch of a 2-part epoxy putty I need to use up, so I just used that. I scrape out roughly equal amounts, mix them very thoroughly, and then use the putty to fill Bob's eye sockets just enough to give me a place to glue the cabochons. I'm a little worried about peeling the paint off, so instead of using the real eyeballs, I use an extra cabochon to test the sockets, then push it in slightly to get a nice flat surface. Then I set Bob aside for a few hours while the putty sets. Once the putty's had a chance to cure, I come back and paint around the edge with flat black paint. This is the same paint I used around the edges of the cabochon, so it should help everything blend in together. With that paint dry, I can use some super glue to stick the cabochons in place. A few seconds later, Bob's done and looking mighty fine. And just a bit ominous, which is what you really want in a skull with glowing eyeballs, right? That's it for this time, folks. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it gave you some inspiration for some fun projects of your own. See you on the next one.